the RBC gain chloride ions from the plasma. So in the plasma, like here in the plasma, we have chloride ions. So these chloride ions will be taken up by the RBC in response to HCO3 to keep the charge balance, actually, because if chloride remains in the plasma and HCO3 also here, the plasma will become more negative. To keep the potential difference equal, chloride should be entered in the RBC against HCO3, and this is called chloride shift. We use this word, chloride shift. So sometime they may ask about the chloride shift. What do you mean by chloride shift? So chloride shift means the transfer of chloride ions from the plasma into the RBC against carbonate ions is called chloride shift. Now here once again, hemoglobinic acid has been formed and oxygen has been released. Now what is the consequences of this reaction? There are two important consequences of this reaction. First consequence, it enables the oxyhemoglobin, I mean HbO2, to unload oxygen. And number two consequence, it keeps the pH of the blood near to neutral, because of the removal of H plus ions from the plasma in the form of hemoglobinic acid, that is HHB. Keep in mind, hemoglobinic acid is a compound and hydrogen ion is not in the form of ions, like it makes a compound, and when hydrogen is not in the form of ions, you can't say it's like it has acidic properties, so it's not like an acid. And this reaction, so we say like two important consequences of this reaction. It enables the oxyhemoglobin to unload oxygen, and this is the demand in the respiring tissue, because the respiring tissues frequently need oxygen for respiration, and hemoglobin easily unload oxygen because in the presence of H plus ions, and carbon dioxide was basically responsible for the production of H plus ions. If you see the first reaction here, it was the carbon dioxide which produced the carbonic acid, and this carbonic acid later on responsible for the production of H plus ion. So if there were no carbon dioxide, there were no production of H plus ion, and there's no H plus ion, there will be no unloading of oxygen. If there's no unloading of oxygen, there will be no dissociation. And that's why we say, Bohr shift says, the curve has been shifted toward the right when there's a higher carbon dioxide. So higher carbon dioxide means more H plus ion. More plus H ion means more dissociation of hemoglobin to release oxygen. And that is one of the mechanism which is the Bohr shift mechanism, and it's responsible to shift the curve toward the right. So this is all about, and I'll further explain it in the next video, inshallah. Thank you. We discussed in detail about the Bohr shift now there's some examination questions I just want to explain on the past papers point of view. Sometimes they have given the graph and they ask you, they will give you some different points, like one point is here, the other point is here, and they will give you another point like here, and the other point like at here. So it is like A, it is B, it is C, and it is D. Now they will ask question like in MCQ, a person is exercising and one person is relaxed and in his room and studying something. So the one which is in exercising, the muscles is in active state now. They have active muscles because they are doing exercise. And the other person have resting muscles because he is just studying and is relaxed in his room. The two person, the examiner wants to ask you, in this graph there are 4 different points A, B, C, D. Can you tell us at which point represent the active muscles and which point represent the resting muscles? Which point? So think about this question and tell me, if a person is doing exercise vigorously, so it means their tissues are in a state of exercise, so they have a much more demand of oxygen, isn't it? Because they are doing exercise, but the person is doing exercise, sorry. So the muscle tissue are in a state of higher rate of respiration. So they have a great demand of oxygen as compared to the resting muscles. So it means the active muscles must have a higher dissociation rate. If there's a higher dissociation, there will be more unloading of oxygen and more oxygen will be available for the tissue to respire. But if you talk about the resting muscles, they have a lesser demand of oxygen now because there's a slow rate of respiration. So if lesser demand of oxygen means we do not need much more dissociation, because dissociation means unloading of oxygen, availability of oxygen. So let's talk about these two curves. So we are looking for that person which is in a state of exercise. I mean active muscles. Keep in mind active muscles. So then tell me, where is the dissociation rate high? In the black one or in the red one? Dissociation rate, where is high? This curve represent percentage saturation. The one which has a higher percentage saturation has lower dissociation, and of course the black line has a higher percentage saturation as compared to the red one. It means that black one has a lower dissociation as it has higher percentage saturation. It is lower dissociation rate as compared to the red one. So it means the red one has higher dissociation. It means our answer may be A or maybe B. It cannot be C and D because both C and D has lower dissociation rate as compared to the red one. So we will eliminate this one. C and D cannot be our answer because they have a higher percentage and lower dissociation. We need more dissociation to unload oxygen. Now here if you compare A and B are the 2 points, at which point there is less saturation? A or B? Of course B has lesser saturation, which is only 34%, and it's more than 70%. So the one which has lower saturation, it must have a higher dissociation rate. So at this point, which is B, is the active muscles, because they need a higher demand of oxygen, and for higher demand of oxygen there should be higher dissociation rate. And higher dissociation is only possible when there is lesser saturation of hemoglobin by oxygen, and that's the answer B. So such type of questions normally we see in the Bohr shift in the examination. So thank you very much for this video.